ask you about Haunted Girl, which you
Oh,
wrote with your daughter. I've seen you talk about it in other interviews as it relates to mental health. That's something that's very important to me. I have several members of my family who have struggled with issues with bipolar. I'm a dad to 4 daughters. Like everything about this story, connects me on a certain, on various levels. I'd love to hear you, tell our listeners a little bit about what Haunted Girl is, where it came from, working on it with your daughter.
well, first of all, Nick, I want to thank you for sharing that story, because one of the things I found, once our mental health family journey began, was like people don't talk about it enough because there's still some people feel a stigma or whatever it is.
For
And I
sure.
think the more people know, almost everybody is struggling in some way, and like you're not
Hmm.
alone, and like this is not
Right.
something like, oh, something is wrong with you or something like that. Like this is part of being human. And I think it's so important to just like lean into
Absolutely.
this and talk about it. And so
Yeah.
in the spirit of that, what happened was in the spring of 2019, my daughter was a high school freshman, and she had basically a breakdown.
Hmm.
There were some warning signs that we completely missed.
Sure.
She was, battling severe depression and anxiety, and was feeling suicidal. And um, we ended up taking her for observation. The school told us we should, to the hospital, and she ended up getting hospitalized. Um, and we had no, like, we were so unprepared. Like our entire world changed like instantly,
Hmm.
like the span of a day. And that started. The thing is, like with hospitalization, is like it's supposed to be temporary, um, and then you find a better, therapy, meds, whatever the plan is. But like she came out and she had missed like 2.5 weeks of school, and it was like a science and math school. It was really rigorous. Like
Hmm.
she was always a great student, and like now she was not. And so she stopped going to school, which so there was this whole chain reaction. And like while
Right.
she was in the hospital the first time, so she ended up being hospitalized 3 times before we were able to get like some kind of stability going.
Hmm.
And I was writing, actually, I think the second issue of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge from the hospital cafeteria, like so that I could be
Mm.
there for like visiting hours.
Sure.
Excuse me. And I wrote down a lot. I wanted to write a story. I had the idea, like I wanted to write a story that would inspire her to keep fighting and
Hmm.
want to live. And so I wrote down a line in a reporter's notebook that I had, which was, "The fate of all life on Earth rests with a girl who doesn't know if she wants to live." And that was, I had no story, but I wrote that down. And then over the months, I came. Sorry, my cat is meowing. My
All
cat
right.
has heard the story before. But anyway, so basically, over the months, I worked with this artist, Marco Lorenzana, who I'd worked with a few times before, and started coming up with an idea. And we brought it to a publisher that shall remain nameless. It looked like it was going to happen, and then the pandemic hits, and like that went away. And as we kept kind of getting close, but not, a lot of publishers were a little nervous about the subject matter. Um, my daughter, this was about a little bit more than a year ago now, I guess a year and 3 months or something. I approached her. I was like, hey, like she's in a much better place.
Hmm.
She's in college now. Still battles the same stuff, but it's uh, further along, I guess. So she was able to write, and I said, would you be willing to write this, because you'll lend an authenticity that I'll be like, otherwise I'm like Steve Buscemi in that meme, like, how's it going, fellow kids? Um, because like
Yep.
she could do the dialogue, she could do what it's like to feel this, like, and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
So the result was this 4-issue comic, where it's about a Cleo, who's a high school student who is kind of fresh out of the hospital, trying to reacclimate to school, and then sort of finds herself at the center of a supernatural apocalypse, and sort of has to fight through these feelings to exist, so that everyone else can, bringing it back to the thing. So yeah, so anyway, I'm pretty proud how it turned out. And it's 4 issues. The fourth issue comes out in February, and then the trade comes out in May. and we teamed up with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and most recently the American Psychiatric Association. I have to remember.
Mhm.
And then they provided like sort of resource guides in the book. So.
That's outstanding. I love that. And I learned about it doing research for our interview with you. I didn't know that it existed ahead of time, full disclosure. But like I said, mental health is so important to me. I've got 15-year-old twins. My wife, who in 2018 was diagnosed as bipolar, and we went through a very similar, not my children, but my wife. We went through a couple of months. She wasn't able to work. It was a big thing. And as a family, we went through it. And I love what you said about certainly the stigma of mental health. And we hear that, periodic. We hear it more now with social media. But, when you go through some of these issues, whether it's you with your daughter, whether it's me with my daughters and my wife, mental health is one of those few things, like, you can't really go through it with other people. Like, you have to go through it on your own, come out the other. People know things are wrong or something's going on, but like, it's not a way to invite them in, because anxiety is an issue, depression, it keeps people out. It's a different thing than a lot of things that we deal with, whether it's cancer, illness, other kinds of stuff like that. But to have these resources, to have people like you guys who are willing to step up and share your story in a way that other people get to relate to, that's really powerful. And that's really special to me. So I am personally excited to go, get the first 3 issues. I'm looking forward to that last issue, because it's something that people in my house will certainly look forward to reading, connecting to, and I want to see it myself. So thank you for being willing to, share your vulnerability. That's a big deal. And that's something that's special as a creator, no matter what. So I really appreciate that y'all are able to do that.
I appreciate it. And like, one of the metrics that I'm proudest of is I went a little bit with my daughter, but I went sort of on my own for a few stops. I think I went to like 12 cities or 12 stores, 11 cities, 7 states, 2 countries, whatever the grand total was. And there was one stop I remember, people are always telling you their personal stories at these signings. And one in Annapolis at Third Eye Comics, this teacher came up to me and he said that, he read it and he bought a few for students. And one of his students who was struggling called a suicide crisis hotline in the back of the book. So I was like, okay, that's one.
Yep.
That's no matter what, this can be a total sales flop, whatever else happens. That's one life that was slightly better. So like, okay, I think that's a success.
And so to reiterate, the first 3 issues are out now.
Yeah.
Issue 4 will hit in February, and then it's on Image, right?
It's Image. Yeah, it's Image and Syzygy. Syzygy is an imprint of Image.